Let us take a journey together, far away from the noise of the modern world, to a place where silence reigns supreme and history lies waiting beneath the waves. Imagine, if you will, a world where great cities once thrived, where people walked streets and built temples, where civilizations rose and fell just as they do today. Now imagine that all of this existed not in some distant mythical realm, but right here on our own planet, now hidden beneath tens of meters of ocean water, preserved in an eerie underwater silence that has lasted for thousands of years. This is the story of the lost cities beneath the sea. This is the story of discoveries that have shaken the foundations of what we thought we knew about human history. And this is the story of why scientists increasingly believe that everything we have been taught about ancient civilizations may be fundamentally incomplete. Picture yourself floating weightlessly in crystal-clear tropical waters, somewhere off the western coast of India. The sun filters down through the waves in dancing patterns of light and shadow. You descend slowly, deeper and deeper, until the light begins to fade and the temperature drops. And then emerging from the murky blue darkness, you begin to see structures. Massive stone formations rise from the seafloor. You see what appears to be a harbor wall, and beyond it, the outlines of buildings arranged in precise geometric patterns. You see anchors lying where they were dropped thousands of years ago. You see artifacts of a civilization that should not be there, dating to a time when conventional archaeology told us such advanced structures simply did not exist. This is Dwarka, and it is one of the most controversial archaeological discoveries of our time. The underwater city of Dwarka lies in the Arabian Sea off the coast of the Indian state of Gujarat. According to the ancient Sanskrit texts of the Mahabharata, Dwarka was the kingdom of Lord Krishna, a divine city of unimaginable splendor where 16,000 queens lived in palatial comfort and merchants from distant lands came to trade their goods. For centuries, scholars dismissed these texts as mythology, as colorful stories designed to teach moral lessons rather than record actual historical events. And then, in the 1980s, Indian marine archaeologist Dr. S.R. Rao began his investigations, and everything changed. Dr. Rao and his team discovered that beneath the waves lay a meticulously planned city. Sonar scans revealed massive stone structures arranged in a grid pattern, exactly as you would expect from an urban settlement. They found what appeared to be a fortified wall, 6 meters thick in some places, protecting the city from the sea. They discovered a harbor with multiple jetties, suggesting that Dwarka was once a bustling port city with significant maritime trade. They recovered artifacts including stone anchors, pottery shards, and beautifully carved sculptures that dated to approximately 90,500 years ago. This was not a myth. This was a real city, built by real people, at a time when most historians believed humanity was still struggling with basic agriculture. The implications of Dwarka are staggering. If a city of this size and sophistication existed 9,500 years ago, then everything we thought we knew about the development of human civilization may need to be completely rewritten. How did these people develop advanced stone-cutting techniques? How did they plan and construct a city with the precision that the underwater ruins suggest? And perhaps most puzzling of all, what catastrophe could have been powerful enough to sink this entire city beneath the waves? Some scientists believe the answer lies in rising sea levels at the end of the last ice age. As temperatures warmed and glaciers melted, sea levels rose dramatically, swallowing coastal settlements around the world. If Dwarka was built near the coast, it would have been particularly vulnerable to these rising waters. But even this explanation raises troubling questions. The construction techniques used in Dwarka appear highly advanced. The city seems to have been carefully planned with streets, drainage systems, and distinct residential and commercial areas. Such urban sophistication is not supposed to appear in the archaeological record for another several thousand years. Let us now travel across the world, to the waters around the Ryukyu Islands in southern Japan. Here, another underwater mystery awaits discovery. In 1986, a local diver named Kihachiro Arataki was exploring the seabed near the island of Yonaguni when he came across something that would change his life forever and spark one of the most heated archaeological debates in modern history. Rising from the ocean floor was a massive structure of precisely cut stone, its edges so sharp and angles so exact that they seemed impossible to be the work of nature alone. The Yonaguni Monument, as it has come to be known, is a staggering sight. It extends roughly 150 meters in length, rises about 30 meters from the seafloor, and contains what appear to be terraces, platforms, staircases, and even what might be a monumental archway or gateway. Marine geologist Masaki Kimura has studied the site extensively, and he is convinced that this is not a natural formation, but the ruins of a sophisticated human-built structure, possibly an ancient city or ceremonial complex that sank beneath the waves thousands of years ago. Kimura estimates that the structure could be up to 10,000 years old, which would place its construction in the late Paleolithic era. At that time, most scholars believe humanity consisted of small groups of hunter-gatherers, people who moved with the seasons, who did not build cities or work stone on this scale. And yet there the Yonaguni Monument stands, or rather sinks, defying every assumption we have made about early human capabilities. Not everyone agrees with Kimura's interpretation. Many mainstream archaeologists dismiss the site as a natural formation, arguing that the sharp edges and right angles are simply the result of natural geological processes, the same processes that created similar formations in terrestrial landscapes around the world. They point out that sandstone and mudstone can fracture in ways that create remarkably straight lines and right angles, and that underwater currents and erosion could easily have shaped the rocks into their current form. But this explanation does not satisfy everyone. Proponents of the man-made theory note several features that seem difficult to explain through natural processes alone. There are what appear to be rows of stone pillars, too regularly spaced to be coincidental. There are carved channels that might have been used for water management. There are markings on the stone surfaces that resemble tool marks. And perhaps most significantly, the entire structure appears to be oriented towards specific astronomical alignments, a feature common in ancient ceremonial sites around the world. The debate over Yonaguni may never be fully resolved without extensive excavation, and such excavation remains controversial. Some worry that disturbing the site would destroy valuable evidence. Others argue that only through careful scientific investigation can we ever hope to understand what this place truly is. What everyone can agree on is that the Yonaguni Monument represents one of the most intriguing mysteries of the underwater world, a place where the boundary between history and legend grows increasingly blurred. Now let us journey to the warm waters of the Gulf of Naples, off the coast of Italy. Here, in relatively shallow water, accessible to recreational divers, lies the sunken city of Baiae, once known as the Las Vegas of the Roman Empire. If Dwarka represents mystery and the unknown, and Yonaguni represents controversy and debate, Baiae represents something different. Baiae is a cautionary tale about the rise and fall of civilizations, about how the choices we make can echo through millennia. In its heyday, Baiae was the most decadent resort town in the ancient world. Roman emperors built lavish villas along its shores. Wealthy patricians came to escape the rigid social conventions of Rome and indulge in pleasures that would have been scandalous in the capital. Baiae was famous for its thermal baths fed by volcanic hot springs, for its elaborate yin-yin and entertainment, for its beautiful views across the bay to the mountains beyond. The poet Virgil described Baiae as a place of delightful vice. The satirist Juvenal warned readers that Baiae was a place where even the fish were corrupted by luxury. The ruins of Baiae that lie beneath the waves today paint a picture of magnificent grandeur now lost to the sea. You can still see the remains of vast villa complexes, their mosaic floors still intact, their frescoed walls still bearing traces of vivid color. You can swim through what was once a private thermal bath, feeling the warmth of volcanic springs that have been flowing for thousands of years. You can explore the remnants of a nymphaeum, an elaborate fountain complex dedicated to the water nymphs that the Romans believed inhabited these springs. Baiae's downfall came not from invasion or war, but from the slow, inexorable movement of the earth itself. The region around Naples is geologically active, home to the volcanic fields known as the Campi Flegrei. Beneath the surface, chambers of magma shift and pulse, causing the land to rise and fall in a process called bradycism. Over several centuries, the land on which Baiae was built gradually subsided, sinking lower and lower until the lower parts of the city disappeared beneath the waves. The upper parts, clinging to the hillside, remained above water for a while, but eventually even they were abandoned as the land continued to sink. Today, Baiae is an underwater archaeological park, one of the few places in the world where ordinary people can swim among the ruins of an ancient civilization. The Italian government has worked to preserve and study the site, and what they have found reveals not just the luxury and excess of Roman society, but also remarkable engineering achievements. The Romans built sophisticated water management systems, aqueducts that carried hot spring water to their baths, and elaborate drainage systems that controlled the flow of volcanic water. In some ways, Baia's technology was more advanced than what we see in many modern spa towns. Baie teaches us that civilizations are fragile things. Even the mightiest empire in the ancient world could not protect its most decadent pleasure city from the slow violence of geological change. And this lesson applies not just to the Romans, but to us as well. We too build our cities on foundations that we assume will last forever, and we too may one day find our greatest achievements resting silently beneath the waves. Let us travel now to the eastern Mediterranean, to the waters off the coast of Israel. Here, near the ancient port of Atlit, lies another submerged city that has much to teach us about our distant past. Atlit Yam was discovered in 1984 by marine archaeologist Ehud Galili, and what he and his team have uncovered since then represents one of the most significant prehistoric archaeological sites ever found. The remains of Atlit Yam lie between 5 and 10 meters beneath the surface of the Mediterranean, spread across an area of approximately 40,000 square meters. What makes this site so extraordinary is its age. Radiocarbon dating of organic material found at the site indicates that Atlit Yam was occupied between 7,000 and 8,000 years before the Common Era, making it one of the oldest submerged settlements ever discovered. At this time, humans were only just beginning to develop agriculture, only beginning to settle in permanent villages, only beginning the long transition from hunter-gatherer lifestyles to the settled civilizations we typically associate with human history. And yet, the people of Atlit Yam built things that surprise us. They constructed a sophisticated water system, with a well that drew fresh water from an underground spring even as the surrounding sea grew increasingly salty. They built stone walls and foundations for buildings arranged in a planned pattern. They fished the Mediterranean waters and farmed the adjacent land. They created art in the form of carved stones and personal ornaments. And then, for reasons that remain unclear, they abandoned their homes and their way of life, leaving behind a ghost city that would remain hidden beneath the waves for 8 millennia. What happened to the people of Atlit Yam? The most likely explanation involves rising sea levels at the end of the Neolithic period. As the Mediterranean basin filled with meltwater from distant glaciers, the coastline advanced steadily, swallowing coastal settlements across the region. Atlit Yam would have been gradually flooded over centuries, its inhabitants probably migrating inland as their homes became increasingly untenable. But there may have been other factors at work as well. Some scholars have suggested that a catastrophic tsunami, triggered by an earthquake or underwater landslide, could have devastated the settlement and accelerated its abandonment. Whatever the cause, the loss of Atlit Yam represents a common theme in the story of underwater cities. Time and again, we find evidence of settlements that flourished for centuries or millennia, only to be swallowed by the sea as climate change, geological processes, or some combination of both reshaped the face of our planet. These discoveries suggest that the history of human civilization is far more complex and extended than we typically imagine, filled with rise and fall cycles that we are only beginning to understand. Let us pause for a moment and consider what all of these discoveries, taken together, might mean. We have Dwarka, a 9,500-year-old Indian city with advanced harbor infrastructure. We have Yonaguni, a structure of uncertain origin that may be 10,000 years old. We have Baie, a Roman pleasure city preserved beneath the waves. We have Atlit Yam, a Neolithic settlement that is challenging our understanding of early human society. And these are just a few of the many underwater cities that have been discovered around the world. Pavlopetri in Greece, Thonis Heracleion in Egypt, the ancient harbor of Constantinople, cities discovered in the waters of Southeast Asia, the Caribbean, and the Pacific. The list goes on and on. What emerges from this global survey is a picture of a world far more dynamic than we typically imagine. Sea levels have risen and fallen dramatically over the past 20,000 years, inundating coastlines that were once home to millions of people. If we accept even the most conservative estimates of prehistoric population levels, we must acknowledge that thousands of settlements, perhaps tens of thousands, may lie buried beneath the waves. And many of these settlements may be far older and far more sophisticated than anything we have yet discovered. This realization has profound implications for archaeology as a discipline. For most of its history, archaeology has focused on terrestrial sites, places where human settlements were abandoned and later excavated. We have developed sophisticated techniques for reading the layers of human activity preserved in ancient trash heaps, for reconstructing the daily lives of people who died thousands of years ago, for understanding how civilizations grew and changed over time. But underwater archaeology is still in its infancy. We lack the tools, the training, and all too often the funding to explore the ocean floors with the same rigor we bring to dry land sites. And even when we do explore, we face enormous challenges. Underwater environments are hostile to most organic materials. Wood rots, cloth disintegrates, bone dissolves over time. What survives is primarily stone and metal, the most durable remains of human activity. This means that we may be systematically missing entire categories of evidence, understanding only the monumental architecture and industrial infrastructure of ancient societies, while losing all trace of their daily life and cultural practices. There is also the challenge of scale. The ocean floor is vast, far vaster than all the continents combined. Finding a submerged settlement is like trying to find a particular house in a city the size of Europe, with the added difficulty that the landscape is constantly shifting, covered in sediment, obscured by marine growth. Most underwater cities have been discovered by accident, by divers who stumbled upon them or fishermen who snagged their nets on sunken ruins. Systematic search efforts have had limited success. And yet advances in technology are beginning to change this picture. Sonar mapping has become increasingly sophisticated, allowing researchers to identify potential sites from surface vessels before ever sending a diver into the water. Remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, can explore depths that would kill a human diver, capturing video footage and even collecting samples from sites that were previously inaccessible. In 2023, researchers announced the discovery of a massive stone structure in the depths of the Black Sea, dating to a period when the region was still dry land. That may represent one of the oldest monuments ever built by humans. These technological advances are opening new frontiers in our understanding of human history. They are also raising new questions about what we thought we knew. If advanced civilizations existed in the distant past, what became of them? Why do we not find their traces in the historical records that have survived to the present day? And is it possible that some of the myths and legends that we have dismissed as fantasy actually contain seeds of historical truth? Consider the legend of Atlantis, the great civilization described by the ancient Greek philosopher Plato in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias. For centuries, scholars have debated whether Atlantis was a real place or purely a philosophical invention, a cautionary tale designed to illustrate Plato's views about the dangers of hubris and the cyclical nature of civilizations. The discovery of real underwater cities around the world has renewed interest in the Atlantis legend, with some researchers arguing that Plato's description, while embellished, may be based on a real historical event, the destruction of a sophisticated Bronze Age civilization by a catastrophic event, possibly a tsunami triggered by an earthquake or volcanic eruption. Could there be a connection between Atlantis and some of the underwater discoveries we have discussed? Some have speculated that Dwarka, with its advanced harbor infrastructure, might represent the Indian Ocean counterpart to Plato's Atlantic civilization. Others have pointed to the YONAGUNI Monument, with its mysterious step structures, as evidence of a sophisticated Pacific culture predating known civilizations. Still others have noted that many ancient cultures around the world share remarkably similar flood myths, suggesting that catastrophic flooding events affected humanity globally, not just in specific regions. The truth, as always, is more complicated than any simple theory can capture. But what we can say with confidence is that the growing body of evidence from underwater archaeology is forcing us to reconsider long-held assumptions about human history. We are learning that the story of civilization is not a simple linear progression from primitive to advanced, from simple to complex. Instead, it appears to be a more complex narrative, full of false starts and reversals, of civilizations that rose and fell, of knowledge gained and lost and sometimes gained again. This brings us back to our original question. What should we make of the discovery of underwater cities that seem to predate or contradict conventional historical timelines? The answer, perhaps, is humility. We have explored only a tiny fraction of the world's oceans. We have excavated only a small number of the underwater sites that undoubtedly exist. We have developed our understanding of human history based on a limited sample of available evidence, and as new evidence emerges, our understanding must evolve. The people who built Dwarka and Atlantis, whatever their exact cultural affiliations and historical trajectories, were our ancestors. They looked up at the same stars we see. They wondered about the nature of existence. They loved and fought and struggled to survive in a challenging world. Their achievements deserve to be recognized and understood, not dismissed because they do not fit neatly into our existing frameworks. As we drift deeper into sleep tonight, Let us carry with us the image of those ancient cities lying silent beneath the waves. Let us think about the countless generations of people who lived and died, who built and created, who raised children and buried their dead, whose lives were as complex and meaningful as our own. They have left us a legacy written in stone and sediment, a legacy that is slowly, painstakingly being deciphered by researchers who dedicate their lives to understanding the past. The ocean is patient. It has kept these secrets safe for thousands of years, waiting for us to develop the tools and the wisdom to uncover them. And as we continue to explore, as our technology improves and our understanding deepens, who knows what other wonders await discovery beneath the waves? Perhaps one day we will find the answer to the greatest mystery of all, not just where we came from, but how many times before us humanity has risen, built, and ultimately been reshaped by forces beyond our control. Until then, we rest in the knowledge that the story of human civilization is far older and far more mysterious than we ever imagined. The underwater cities bear silent witness to this truth, waiting in the dark waters for future generations to uncover their secrets. And as we sleep tonight, we join our ancestors in that long human tradition of wondering about the past, dreaming of lost worlds, and hoping that someday we will understand who we truly are. Sleep now, knowing that history is not a fixed thing, not a collection of facts carved in stone, but a living, changing story that we are privileged to help write. The lost cities of the deep have their stories to tell, and we are beginning, at last, to listen. Good night, and sweet dreams.